live. How you doing, Mets fans? It's your boy Wardy, and we got a lot to break down. And I know you're probably wondering, Wardy, why do we have a lot to break down after we just discussed how much of the Jorge Lopez situation over this past night? Well, there's a lot more to actually get into it quite a bit, and the situation seems like it's gotten worse before it's gotten better with some clarity that we have found out today, both from Jorge Lopez's front, from the Mets front, and everything in between. So we are going to touch on a lot here to start off the show on what's been going on with the DFA to Jorge Lopez, all the antics that ensued yesterday, basically who's right, who's wrong, are both of them having their sides understood, and everything in between. We, of course, are going to be taking a look at the two lineups here as the Mets do somehow have a baseball game that they have to play today. There is no off day as they're about to kick off their three-game set at home against the Arizona Diamondbacks, trying to make sure that they don't falter beyond 11 games below 500 the way that the Mets unfortunately already have. We'll get into the lineups. We'll get into my picks and parlays of the day here with our amazing sponsor at BetUS. You see the current line down below where the Mets currently stand as the money line underdog at plus 110 and plus 1.5 on the spread at minus 170. We'll get into all that and everything that you guys need to know, but we have a lot to break down here, folks. A lot. And when I tell you that I really am truly bothered about this entire Jorge Lopez situation, I am. And after hearing more clarity, after understanding more context behind this situation, there are remarks that I didn't get a chance to say in my previous video that I posted after midnight yesterday. But of course, make sure to check that video out if you haven't already. It still holds true in a lot of ways in regards to the lack of leadership with this group, the lack of unity, the lack of identity, which is what prompted my video. And it had to do with not only with Jorge Lopez being DFA'd, but after a roughly 1 hour team meeting, the emotions still riding high there. Why exactly was that the case, and what is all the turmoil going on in Metsland? We broke down in great length in our coverage yesterday. So if you guys did not check out our roughly 2-hour-long post-game show where I took live callers, we all heard live Jorge Lopez's initial remarks about the Mets and about himself as a teammate. Highly implore you all to check that out before we get into tonight's game after you hear this pregame show. But everyone first chiming in, happy to have you on here. JT, thank you so much, my friend. Really does mean a lot. Happy to have you. Frank, Jeffrey, Matthew, Kevin, Dave, great member, PB, great member, Ben, Matthew, Kevin, Elix, thank you all so much for chiming in, folks. Bear with me 1 second as I'm still getting everything set up here, because again, I got a lot to say on this situation, more than what I had, honestly more than what I thought I was initially going to have, because we have found out more information here. Jorge Lopez jerseys are selling like crazy on Amazon. I'm not surprised for various reasons, and we will get into that shortly. But in the meantime, everybody, just bear with me 1 second as I'm making sure we're all set up. If you guys are chiming in live here on YouTube, smash that like and subscribe button for your boy. Greatly appreciate. If you guys are watching on Twitter, thank you so much for being here as well. Hit that like, hit that follow button, hit that retweet button. But no, I will only be interacting with our live viewers here through YouTube per usual, like we always do. Just want to make sure that this is all set up on this front. Give me 1 more second, everybody, and then we are going to get into this. Okay, gonna just put this under the Mets tweets so that way more Mets fans can see that we're live right now, and then we're gonna kick this bad boy off. I got a lot to say, folks. I really do. And more than anything, I am just truly bothered by this entire ordeal. I'm bothered from how the Mets handled it. I'm bothered from Jorge Lopez to a degree. But honestly, I'm not going to sit here and grill Jorge Lopez because, truthfully, while, yes, he absolutely made mistakes yesterday that I'm sure to a degree he would like to have back, assuming that he didn't want to be completely off this team, maybe he did. And that's something that I can't speak for him on, so that might be just an assumption I'm putting together there. That might be wrong on my point. But I really want to start today's show by getting into, again, further context on the Jorge Lopez situation, why exactly he was DFA'd, how the Mets mishandled this situation, including, again, we're going to call it a buck, Steve Gelbs and others. They did not go about the situation properly whatsoever, and I was simply relaying the information that we had yesterday. We were told that Jorge Lopez doubled down on his comments, in which he did, but I think we really did not really take into a heavier account the lack of, the dialect there, having the broken English, being Puerto Rican, not having an interpreter there as well, and Steve Gelbs, instead of asking him to, again, restate his comment, basically, not necessarily put words in his mouth, but said it in a manner that made a hot-headed Jorge Lopez simply agree and said, yeah, that's probably what I said. In reality, he should have just restated his initial statement, and then we would have had better context with this entire situation. Was Jorge Lopez getting DFA'd regardless of his comments yesterday? 100%. Jorge Lopez, again, the reaction between how he was on the field, going out of his way then to say that even after throwing his glove and Carlos Mendoza saying this is unacceptable and this will be handled. Mind you, this is after Jorge Lopez also lied to the media and said he did not speak to Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns postgame when he did in fact have a closed-door meeting with them prior to then making his comments in his postgame interview, which again was not when we initially found out he was DFA'd. He was not DFA'd until after his interview was done there, talking with Steve Gelbs, Anthony DeComo, whoever, all the Mets media brass there. So let's clarify that thing right there. So for any fans that think, okay, Jorge Lopez let it rip because he was DFA'd, no, he was not DFA'd yet. He was hot-headed. Yes, he did go out of his way to make remarks that he probably shouldn't have made, obviously, after a closed-door team meeting, too, of roughly an hour. So there are major red flags there, which is what prompted my video as to the Mets have a major problem right now. Again, make sure to check that out, folks, because they do. Wardy, truthfully speaking, I can understand. We're going to get to the chat here before I break down further here. Frank in the chat says, Wardy, truthfully speaking, I can understand him being upset, but to do what he did to talk about his teammate in public, know that I can't blame him for the DFA. And again, we are going to get into that because I want to clarify everything to an absolute T the best way I possibly can from all the information that we have. I know that Jorge Lopez is not a guy that Mets fans are going to be thinking about, probably beyond the next week or so, even though we will when he gets picked up by a playoff contending team and has a 2.5 ERA for the remainder of the season. We're wondering, what could have been? The same way Brooks Raley's time in Queens probably has already come to an end, unfortunately, as he successfully had his surgery today. He's out for the season. He's a free agent at the end of the year. With a Mets team that has so much turmoil, I think we have seen Brooks Raley pitch the last game in a Mets uniform, which is a big bummer because I love Brooks Raley in this bullpen, so I'm wishing him all the best with his future endeavors. Drew Smith had a rehab outing yesterday. Did not look good, but again, he's working his way back up to be with the Mets in this bullpen. We saw Josh Walker, has been with the Mets as we know. We also saw the Mets announce the DFA officially of Jorge Lopez today, along with Danny Young, the southpaw, being called up, and we're going to see a lot of interchangeable relievers there in the bullpen. But I want to take the time here and just get into it. Lordy, how you doing? I know you're the GOAT, my man. Happy to have you in here. Thank you so much, JT, for the $20 holla. JT says, still a Mets fan, but it's hard to watch him at times. Oh, at times, might as well just say every single day. I mean, it is unbelievably difficult to watch this Mets team. The fact that the Mets even have a game today is honestly asinine, considering the fact that they have been free-falling so bad. You had all this drama ensue. Of course, they're on the back pages of the New York Post today, because why wouldn't they be with the way that everything transpired with Jorge Lopez yesterday? So, let's talk, everybody. Let's get into this. Jorge Lopez was pissed. He was hot-headed. He is a guy that I've now read multiple articles on, has struggled mightily with his mental health throughout his young career. And there's various reasons as to why this is, but no less, Jorge Lopez, even after, understanding that there was a roughly hour-long team meeting led by Francisco Lindor, in which Carlos Mendoza, pregame presser today, just a couple minutes ago, said he was unaware of it initially happening, but he's glad it did happen. He said he was intending and going to talk to the team as a collective group, but he was very happy to see Lindor, again, be the driver there and then really vent and let it out. Because when you don't have an off day, like the Mets don't today, you need to make sure that you have ample time to really get things together as a collective group. And while I still stand on the fact that the Mets do lack serious leadership, what they don't lack is leadership from a guy in Francisco Lindor. Say what you want about Francisco. He might be your favorite or least favorite player. He's always had the great work ethic. He's always put the best possible thing together to be the best player he can be, even when the results aren't there. And I appreciate Lindor going out of his way to do what he did yesterday, even if it doesn't have a great response. And the reason why I don't care too much about the team meeting is because what are the results going to be? They need to prove it to us. If we see the Mets get on a run after this lit a fire under their ass, and we can thank, again, Mr. Lindor for helping that cause. But getting on the topic of Jorge Lopez here, Patrick Mahomey with the $5 haul in the chat says, yes, saying what he said was definitely wrong on a professional level, but is he wrong? The Mets with all these big money contracts stink, not mad at him. Exactly. Two things can be true, and that is what I want to clarify with you all today. Jorge Lopez was pissed off. He, again, after a roughly hour-long team meeting, still went out of his way to make the remarks that he did. That's a major red flag. For that alone, that is going to get you cut, even if you have been a pretty productive player for the most part in this Mets bullpen, the way Lopez has in many ways so far throughout the first couple months of the season. Not yesterday in his performance, but as a whole, Lopez has been far from the Mets' biggest issue on the pitching end this season, and we all know that. I've thoroughly enjoyed many outings that he has had. He gives up early contact, but he's also escaped plenty jams. So Jorge Lopez, beyond pissed off. Now we get some more clarity on this situation, because we hear from Anthony DiComo. Again, this is Anthony DiComo, who was reporting on this yesterday as well, along with Steve Gelb. Steve Gelb's trying to put on his reporter hat when he is not exactly that right now. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. And when you try to be a reporter, especially in a high intensity situation, it is very easy for things to not go in the way that you hoped. And that is certainly the case here with Steve Gelb to a degree. But let's take a look here briefly, everybody, here on Twitter, because Anthony DiComo earlier today tweeted the following. And, of course, Anthony, for those that don't know, is on the beat for the Mets. I want to be clear about this. Jorge Lopez was not DFA'd because of any teammate confusion. He was DFA'd because he embarrassed the organization with his actions and words, throwing his glove into the stands, lying about meeting with management, and offering zero remorse. All that is justified and understandable. That alone is going to get any guy on any team DFA'd 9 times out of 10 at bare minimum. So I 100% understood why the Mets DFA'd him, were separate from his remarks that, again, were misconstrued a little bit on it being, okay, is it about the worst team, being the worst teammate, whatever it may be. Then he says that's the whole thing. Regardless of what actual words Lopez said, he swore multiple times on camera at me every single night, literally. Fuck. So there you go. After having an hour plus to cool off post-game, his tone was clear and obvious, and the furthest thing from contrite Mets officials found it acceptable. Now, while that is true, and while there's nothing technically wrong with that statement, what is hilarious is, simply put, this is as ironic as one can be. You want to talk about embarrassment? I'm sorry, step right up and meet the effing Mets, baby. There is nothing more bigger of a laughingstock in all major sports right now than the New York Metropolitans, something that has been a commonality almost every single season of my existence as a young fan. You know how ridiculous that is to say, yet that is actually accurate? This is not us Mets fans trying to say, okay, this team is so much worse than what they actually are. No, they are. They have been beyond underwhelming. They have played like dog shit, and they continue getting headlines every single season, no matter who the owner is, no matter who the Pobo is, no matter who the manager is, for all the wrong reasons. This is why they're a laughingstock, because yes, the media does go out of their way to make sure it can be LO Mets for clicks. That is 1,000% true. Buster Olney is the king of it, and is exactly why no one should give a rat's ass about a bum with over 1 million followers on Twitter when he can barely get any traction on his Twitter feed because no one gives a rat's ass about his takes. That is an example of someone that has ill information and goes out of his way to try to do Mets for clicks because he's a Braves fan and he's a schmuck, and he knows that. But in the case here of, again, guys like this and this entire situation, it's different. And something that also stood out today was Jorge Lopez speaking furthermore on this situation. Let's take, of course, make sure to drop a follow for your boy Wardy on Twitter if you haven't already. Thank you so much in advance. Oh, look, that's us talking right now on Twitter. That's a little trippy. If you're watching this on Twitter, you're like, what is going on right now? But and also, guys, make sure to follow my awesome pitching contributor that gives me pitching reports after each game, Isaac Rothman, a young stud of a pitching analysis guy. He has the latest thread here on Tyler McGill and why he is looking fantastic so far this season back from injury. Check it out at Isaac Rothman on Twitter. Do yourself a favor there. I was also with Jake Brown, of course, from the New York Post, former host there that we saw with the New York Post Mets podcast that no longer exists, but his new podcast, the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic, was, again, available for you all on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I did a pretty much event session talking about all the Jorge Lopez Mets nonsense, this dumpster fire you call a team in Flushing. Check that out. That is available, again, wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to Jake. Appreciate the invite there. But what I want to get to here, that's the video from yesterday. Let's talk about this. This is Jorge Lopez on Instagram today, really trying to clarify. Whoever hear me say teammate, and whoever hear me said teammate, and what I said on the situation, I've been the worst teammate. Thanks, media, for making it worse. So he's clarifying here that he did, in fact, say teammate. When I initially heard the interview yesterday, I heard teammate come out of his mouth. It was a little difficult, but it seemed that way. However, we were all led to believe differently after Steve Gelbs asked him to pretty much double down, and he said, yeah, probably. Mind you, Lopez was just pissed and wanted to get out of the interview. I think we all saw that, obviously. And that's a situation where I think he wasn't protected. I'm sorry, where the fuck is the interpreter here, right? Apparently, they were off to the side. There were multiple people off to the side throughout this ordeal, and they really didn't get involved because at that point, they knew what Lopez's demise would be, which would be him getting DFA'd. Regardless on the reason or lack thereof to not have an interpreter present when the Mets, of course, have one in-house. We know who that is with the really cool, birthmark in his hair. I don't know the guy's name. I'm blanking right now, but he does a good job. Him not being there is a problem in a situation like this when those remarks, while they weren't the sole reason why he was DFA'd, didn't do himself any favors either. Now, the big thing that has stood out since then is Jorge Lopez has not been only going through things mentally, which I know very well as someone who struggles with anxiety. I struggle with mental health. We all do. That's why mental health awareness is a very important thing. That's why when I've had awesome sponsors in the past, like BetterHelp, I highly implore you guys to get involved with therapy and all those kind of things because they really are great and they do help you. But Jorge Lopez, what did come to light today that we heard from Boomer Esiason on WFAN for Boomer and Gio was that unfortunately Jorge Lopez has a ill child at the moment. And his son or daughter, I don't know which one it is, so I'm not going to misspeak there. He is in dire need of a transplant. So I can only imagine the type of internal struggles and problems that a guy like Jorge Lopez is currently going through. Does that justify actions? No, but does it provide context, great context? Absolutely. And that's where the Mets being as blunt as they were with DFAing him, while I understand from an organizational standpoint why they had to pull the trigger there, it is also disheartening to see a lack of personability, a lack of truly caring for a player when you know that they have internal struggles going on. And I know that Jorge Lopez is not the only player in Major League Baseball that is going through problems. That is 100% true. But what is also true is the fact that that is not something to understate. That is a massive thing. If you have anything, as someone who's about to be a soon-to-be father, I can tell you that anything when it comes to my child, that of course is going to be the utmost priority. And that's something I'm going to stress on a lot and make sure that until everything's rectified, I'm going to be sweating bullets. I'm going to be just praying my best that things can get better. So for Lopez's case, as an active player that probably isn't able to even be around his child as consistently as he would like, knowing that they're sick and ill, I can only imagine the type of emotions that he goes through when, one, he has that going on, two, he's getting his ass lit up lately when on the mound, and three, he's been a part of a team that has been nothing short of a laughingstock for over a month straight since he has, been here. First month was up and down that we saw. Second month of May, one of the worst months in Mets history, folks. Mind you, the Mets have not had a month this bad, especially in the month of May, in a very long time. All the other teams that have had a type of stretch the Mets have been the worst teams for the most part in Mets history. So unless we see a miracle happen, the Mets are right on par to have themselves a truly historically bad season. They are right en route to do exactly that, on pace to win, 60 games? So to just provide some context here, while I 100% understand why the Mets didn't pull the trigger, did what they did, they cut ties, they cut the cord there with Jorge Lopez, I also think it sucks. This entire situation is terrible, and Jorge Lopez deserves more support than maybe what the Mets gave him. Again, I can't speak on the Mets' behalf here. I cannot tell you that they went out of their way to try to help him a lot, and he decided to not take that help. I have no clue on what actually has happened internally between Lopez and the Mets organization. I just know what has been relayed out there. And what has been relayed out there is a Jorge Lopez that has a lot of things going on that is much bigger than baseball, and I truly do feel for the guy. So wherever Jorge Lopez goes, I wish him nothing but the absolute best. I hope he doesn't go to the Phillies or Braves and carves us up, but if he does, then he does. It is what it is. All I know is that this entire situation sucks from all fronts. I think from a media perspective, they handled it piss poor. It's an embarrassment, and people who aren't actual reporters should stick to not being reporters. I'm not a reporter. I don't go out of my way to try to report things that, again, I know for certainty I don't have enough backing on, one, even if I'm in that situation. The only type of report I've ever done where I'm not just relaying a report, when I tweet my offseason coverage of saying, okay, report, Mets are interested in so-and-so, that's not my report. That's just me telling you guys there's a report out there. Let's have that discussion. I've only done this once, and that's when I physically met Steve Cohen in person. And I simply asked him, what's the latest on Carlos Correa? Everyone wants to know. And he said, basically, we're going to have a resolution soon, one way or another. That was it. That was it. Everyone ran with it, and that's how it was. So for people, again, to be in this clubhouse that are not active reporters, that are not ones that I think you can look at and say they have this utmost sense of credibility, because, again, Steve Gelbs does a fantastic job with what he does at SNY as a host for them, not only for the Mets, for the Jets and other things, but there's a reason why he is a host. There is a reason why he is not labeled a Tim Healy, an actual beat reporter, because he is far from it. So I think this is just a learning situation for hopefully Steve, the Mets organization, on how to evaluate these things going forward, because it was a piss poor approach by both sides, and now we have the unfortunate reality for a guy that he knows out of work, he will be picked up 100%. There's no doubt in my mind he will be. He won't be. But still, it's just a really unbelievably shitty situation that somehow got worse before it can now get better with, again, the Mets just moving on without Jorge Lopez. So that is all the latest context on the Jorge Lopez front, folks. And I'm really curious where you guys and gals stand regarding this. I know I have a bunch of comments and questions I'm going to get to. Bear with me as I go back to my main slide here, folks. My intro might run for a second, so apologies in advance if you want to lower your volume, because it's going to run here for a second. Minimize. Okay, we are good. Let me get to some of your comments before we go further here. If you're a player and you aren't happy, let it rip. Stop with the let's care about feelings crap. I agree, Juan, great member. I 100% agree. And that's also one of those things where, you know, I understand what Lopez is saying, you know? It's just the context of he's an active player. You can't be making those remarks. Even if he, again, meant to say, you know, I'm the worst teammate, you know, even Anthony DeComo said yesterday that it was basically a mix of I'm the worst teammate on the worst team. Whatever it is, Lopez, again, tried to clarify today that he really just meant to say that he's the worst teammate. And I can understand how he feels that way when he stormed off the way he did to throw his glove, because that's so uncommon in Major League Baseball. It is common for Jeff McNeil to throw his bat and be pissed off and yelling F-bombs down the first baseline. He does that every single day. It is not common for a pitcher to go out of their way after being thrown out by a third base ump because they were not happy with that situation, because he threw, and I think he threw and accidentally hit the player there at third base or close to, and he wasn't happy with that situation, which prompted him, you know, just letting it rip. And that's where Lopez's emotions got the best of him there, unfortunately, which then prompted him to throw the glove over and then make his remarks after that 1 hour discussion, not only with Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns for a period of time, then being in the room with the entire club as Francisco Lindor was the driver behind it to have these discussions. Doc, thank you so much for a $5 donation. Doc says, what do I think about the optimism of Stearns? It rubs me the wrong way. I don't have much of any concerns with David Stearns. Far from it. Yeah, no worries on the David Stearns front. I want David Stearns to have his hands on as much of his team as possible, because the things that he has had true hands on have had far more success than anything else really going on with the Mets. And that's a fact. Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, key aspects of this bullpen, Harrison Bader have all been bright spots this season. Yes, you can say Joey Wendell was the wrong move. That's why he cut him, basically as soon as he could. Yes, Jorge Lopez situation sucks. Should have been handled better? Yes, absolutely. How much do you blame the Pobo in that situation? No, I'll leave that for you guys to decide. What I know is, for what David Stearns inherited, that has been the bigger problem, because that is where the Mets have been most underwhelming so far this season. And mind you, this is also David Stearns that Steve Cohen wanted to hire as soon as possible when he first became owner. So to suggest that David Stearns is not the guy or has been viewed as the guy, far from it. Steve Cohen has had him on his radar since day one, and it took over 3 years to finally land him. Let's see, Yoshima, thank you so much for the donation. Mark, where's Gigi? Gigi is right across from me. Gigi and Stormy are doing great. Actually, had to take Stormy to the vet today. She's doing good, though. Everything's good on that front. For those that know, I have 2 bunnies. They're lion heads. They're adorable. If you're wondering, Wardy, why do you have bunnies? I love bunnies. I'm a sucker. I'm one of those guys that likes to go to pet stores every now and then, and if I see something cute enough, I'm like, oh, shit. All right, now I got to get it. Yeah, as long as the girlfriend's fine with it, as long as the fam's fine with it, then we're gonna get whatever I want. So that's how it goes. Yoshima, appreciate you chiming in, blowing up the situation. Shocker, like they're still owned by the Wilpons. That is true. For those that don't know, SNY is still owned by the Wilpons. Juan Diaz with the donation as well. I would do the same thing to get out of a garbage team. Now a playoff team going to pick him up and he's going to be happy. Mets up. No, you're right. 100%. Jorge Lopez, for a guy that has so much internally going on, I promise you, there is going to be a weight off of his shoulders now that he's out of New York, out of this market, and out of this godforsaken team. Because again, and I said this about Alonso potentially returning in the offseason should he not be dealt. What is there outside of dollars that the Mets can present to warrant Pete Alonso wanting to stay a Met. And I'm not talking from the aspect of the Mets, say, letting Alonso walk, because that very well may happen. I'm talking the context of Pete Alonso in the situation where we do want him back, and the Mets want to bring him back. Outside of emotional attachment and being a homegrown talent, what is there to suggest that you want to be here? The same thing goes with Juan Soto. Anyone that thinks that Juan Soto would come to Mets for anything outside of a massive overpay of $600+ million is foolish. Money is the only driver that could warrant a guy like Soto especially to ever come to Queens, because there is no structure still. Again, these things don't happen overnight. They take a while with new front offices, new regimes, new management, all those kind of things. But just everything about the Mets organization is just a complete curse. I joked about it yesterday, and I'll say it again. I don't know who signed an effing deal with the devil for the Mets to win at 86, but whoever did, they can go off themselves, because they have now hurt and pained so many Mets fans, a lot of Mets fans who have never seen winning culture whatsoever, the way that I certainly haven't in my young time as a Mets fan, the way that I know many of you guys haven't either. Let's see. Watching Language Warrior, Jorge was DFA'd for profanity. There you go, Pat. I know. We just talked about it. Dude, I love the Mets, and I have loved and traveled all over the country, no matter where I have been. Local baseball fans, LOL at the Mets. 1,000%, 100%. That narrative is only, on a pedestal right now, unfortunately. Question, Warrior, how do the Mets attract free agents going forward with all this bad press? It's money, and it's by having structure. And we're going to see this offseason, again, the Mets can try their sell jobs all they want, but it'll be based on their dollars. And David Stern's building a continued philosophy on what your role is when you get here. The Mets don't have an identity right now. And that has little to do with David Stearns and has a lot to do with the on-field product. And again, the guys that were inherited here from previous regimes. So a lot of turmoil, again, needs to happen in order for them to get where they need to be. Let's see here. Mendoza is going to stay. Fire him would mean Stearns picked the wrong guy. Not just that, but it's common sense. And I've been saying this since the beginning. If I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. It would be the one of a million times so far since covering the Mets, because they continue to find new ways to surprise me in the worst ways possible. Carlos Mendoza was hired as a manager to be here potentially for the long run, to be a first-time manager that the Mets can try to blossom to be their homegrown talent the way that we have seen with other organizations, essentially. That stuff doesn't happen overnight, especially when you are in a transitionary year just pushing for a final wild card spot. Doesn't matter if the Mets have the worst record or the best record in baseball this season. Carlos Mendoza isn't going anywhere unless something actually warrants it, that he himself does something or says something that we find out internally that's a major red flag or a problem. We haven't really seen that yet. All we know is that he's had a lot of ups and downs early on as a new first-time manager. We've seen him have success with management and the lineup configurations and the bullpen, and we've seen him struggle mightily with the bullpen configuration at times. So that goes without saying for basically every manager in baseball. But yeah, Mendoza, simply put, doesn't matter if you guys love him or hate him, he's not going anywhere right now for obvious reasons. And this goes going all the way back to the offseason. That viewpoint is not changing whatsoever. Wish I could have seen you at the doubleheader. WardyNYM 2 games for the price of 1. BC, happy to have you in here, my man. I'm glad that I was not at that godforsaken doubleheader, if you're referring to the Dodgers one, because I would literally be just wasting my entire day. Imagine going out of your way to go see Mets games right now. Literally, to anyone that does it, I commend you. You're greater than I am, because I'm not doing that shit. I ain't doing it until we get sometime in the summer. I have no interest to see this Mets team right now. None, nada, zip. Feel very badly for Lopez, his PB. I think he was disappointed in himself. I think he was too. And again, this guy struggles with mental health. So I'm sympathizing with him even more than what I initially was going to, because I know that feeling very well. And I know, again, you don't have to, I'm not here to say that, I amassed some problems. I'm very grateful for the life that I live, the lifestyle that I currently have, and even with about to be, now a young father. I'm very excited and grateful for all these things. It doesn't change the fact that we still go through our daily mental struggles, and that is something that can never be batted an eye. On a completely separate note, we did just see, I forget the gentleman's name, unfortunately, but there was just a PGA golfer who unfortunately just took his life over this past week or so after, just speaking to the media on the importance of mental health awareness and really trying to address it, and himself trying to be better, and still that happened, which is so heartbreaking to hear, and my condolences to his entire family through this time of grief. I can only imagine what that is like that they're going through right now. But it goes without saying that even when you're a multi-million-dollar professional athlete, you go through a lot. Okay, this is not an easy thing to do. You might play a kid's game, but you also have so many other factors going on in your life along with being a baseball player or whatever whatever type of sport that you're involved in. So for Lopez's sake, with not only his mental health, but with the current situation with his child, which again is in need of a transplant of some sort, I not only, sympathize with him and his entire family, I just feel terrible about that entire situation. I really do. And that's all I have to say about that. So Jorge Lopez, wishing you the absolute best. And for the Mets here, they're going to try to move forward after becoming yet again the laughingstock of Major League Baseball. We are going to get into here shortly on the lamps, everybody. But before I kind of ask your further questions on this, I do want to read some of your comments. But guys, give me a simple thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat on the Mets lineup right now for a yay or a nay. That's what we want. Either thumbs up, thumbs down, or give me a yay or a nay in the chat on the Mets lineup right now for today's game to kick off their series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Let me know. Let's see here. Stop treating the players like little boys. Treat them like men and hold them accountable. Make them play with passion. Morty, stop treating the players like little... What are you talking about, Frank? I call out the Mets literally every single day, including the players. I will, however, sympathize with a guy that has a lot of personal issues going on. 100%, but he's not even on the team anymore. So that's already essentially a has-been situation. But yeah, I don't really know what you mean by that, because I call this team out what feels like every single effing day for over a month now. Individual players, collective whole, everybody. Let's see. Hello, Wardy. Yay, Dominic with the period. This says it best. I don't think Dominic's all that excited to be talking about the Mets right now, but he's in here. Great member. Happy to have you in here. Let's see. Steven says, why the hell is Narvaez behind the plate? It will be a nothing L. Probably. Solid chance. Kristen Scott is on the bump today. That's exciting. That's something to look forward to. Not the guy catching him, unfortunately. Let's see. Isn't your draft, young players, you don't have to always buy free agents. Oh, I agree. You don't always have to buy free agents. And we've quickly learned that that's a failure and not the proper approach to have. The Mets tried in a short, win now stage. It failed. Now they're moving forward from there. Let's see here. With someone else who deals with mental health, with someone else who deals with my mental health, if I don't take my meds, my temper can snap easily. Now add MLB professional pressure. Yep. And again, I can't speak on Lopez's behalf. I can't speak on the Mets' behalf, how much or how little they've helped him, how vocal he's been about his internal struggles. I have no clue on that front, so I'm not going to speak for anyone there. All I know is that that's just a terrible situation to go through. And again, no one should have to go through it. So just hoping the best for Lopez's sake and for the Mets, that both sides we can just move forward here and let this be in the past. I know it's not going to be. I know we're going to look back on this years from now. We're going to talk about, what were the craziest moments, in recent Mets history, media-wise, things of that nature. You think Rat and Raccoon, you think Jason Vargas wanted to rip Tim Healy's head off. You think about all these things, and now you add Jorge Lopez and his quote, or, misunderstood quote, rather, in the mix here. Let's see. Why can't we score on paper? We look good. On live games, we look disgusting. Exactly. And that is where the lack of unity, that is where the lack of leadership, and that is where the lack of a true identity as an organization comes into play. Wardy, MLB on Fox just posted a presser that Mendoza spoke on Lopez about the DFA, saying the decision was based on standards of the team. Check it. I did. But if actually, here's the thing. I can touch on that briefly. I just can't show you guys. I can probably play the audio. I just can't show you guys too much more beyond that. If I play the audio, I'll be good. But if I show the video, then they're going to flag me. So let's do this. Sorry, everybody. Your boy's still battling the sinus infection. So let's see here. Let's get on to this quote. We have standards here. Yes, I know we have standards here. That is correct. Okay, now let's get down to this. So here's just some remarks from Carlos Mendoza, everybody, and then we'll talk a bit more about the lineups before we wrap up the pregame. If you guys haven't already, smash that like and subscribe button. Greatly appreciate. Thank you all so much in advance, folks. We will be back live later this evening for our latest postgame segment, and yes, we are planning on taking live callers again tonight. I promised you guys I will take either live callers or I will take a special guest every single show that we do this week. And right now, I think we're leaning more on the live callers, barring any changes. But if I do bring a special guest in last minute, I will let you guys know. We'll have them for tonight's show. But in the meantime, let's take a look here on some of the remarks from Carlos Mendoza today. Carlos Mendoza on his pregame press conference addressing the decision to DFA Jorge Lopez. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, I'll just start addressing the Jorge Lopez situation because I know you guys have questions, but I'm not going to get into the details here. Yesterday, when I was doing my press conference after the game, I told you guys that we were going to address the issue internally, which we ended up doing. Obviously, we made that decision. The timing and how everything went down. Like I said, not gonna get into details on that. Obviously, we have standards here, and I told you guys yesterday that behaviors like that, we were going to tolerate that. So that's what we made the decision. We addressed it, and now we got the Diamondbacks here in town.
Carlos, I know you said that you're not going to get into the specifics of it, but just can you explain a little bit about what was it about the behavior that led to that level of GFA?
Yeah, look, when you're not playing well, guys will show emotions. There's frustrations, but there's a fine line. And yesterday we went over that line, and we're not going to tolerate that.
Carlos, I know you said that you're not.
Just as a bilingual person who's been in the game for a while, what was your reaction when you saw the interview?
I wasn't happy, obviously, but look, yeah, let's move on from that.
Just as a bilingual person.
And that is pretty much it on Mendoza. Well, Carlos Mendoza says he wasn't aware Mets players were going to hold a team meeting. This was the final thing that he had to say on regards to Lindor.
When you were in here last night, were you aware that they were about
and
to
you
hold a
guys can hear
meeting
the
and
audio
what-
still,
what-
correct?
I was not.
Just want to clarify with you all.
So what was the reaction when you walked in and when you see that phone?
I liked it, because if not, obviously, as a manager, I wanted to get the team together. But the fact that guys got together, I liked it because it's important for them to let it all out. And yesterday, I thought with them calling that meeting, it was needed for all of us.
Touched on
Okay, folks, and that's about it in regards to Carlos Mendoza. Pete Alonso is day-to-day. Thankfully, his further imaging came back negative that we saw yesterday after being drilled on the fingers by James Paxton, in which Paxton only threw 3 innings yesterday, and the Dodgers still went on to win. And a very, very Dodgers and Metsian fashion. Alonso, thankfully, is just day-to-day after a bone bruise, and he said, and I quote, "I really feel like I got lucky and dodged a bullet." Alonso on the moments when he got hit by the pitch yesterday, and I quote, "It all hurts, and you really don't know until what the imaging tells you. I feel very fortunate. I feel very lucky." So that is, again, the latest from Alonso. I don't know what to think on the Jorge Lopez situation. He says that. I don't blame him at all there. So now let's get into this one, folks. Let's talk about the lineups here. Again, the Mets are matching up against the Arizona Diamondbacks, right? And I asked you guys where you stand in regards to the lineup. Is it a yay or a nay for you? Personally, I don't know how to feel. Truthfully, I'm at a point where just whatever works, right? Whatever works. Francisco Lindor in the leadoff spot has been working. And for those that don't think it has been working, let me tell you the following. Dave, I will do that, my friend. Bear with me 1 second. I will do that after the show, assuming that it doesn't need to be handled until after the show. But no less, let's get into real quick. I want to share with you all Francisco Lindor's stats this season. 1 batting leadoff. Because they are telling of what is working and what is not so far. So let's go down here. We have standards here, makes new ways to lose. Yep, yes, trust me. Even when it's true, it doesn't mean that there's a lot of irony in there. And there certainly is professional certified hater. Thank you so much for that donation. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Hope you're doing fantastic this evening. But as we get into, let's do the splits. Going to check the MLB stats. Okay, folks. Now, when we look at the batting, again, batting first, leading off, Francisco Lindor. This is, again, the numbers were much better just a day or two ago, but I think the doubleheader is what cooked him. So Francisco Lindor, funny enough, what I'm seeing right now, batting first this season, and batting first, second, third, eighth, okay, leadoff. Here we go. Wait. Do I have this right? Batting leadoff average. I'm confused, actually. Hold on. Because I literally, just a couple days ago, the numbers look great. Maybe they have plummeted a lot in a short period of time just from the past couple days. That wouldn't have shocked me if that's the case. But what I am seeing right now, just on MLB.com, when looking at Francisco Lindor's numbers, when looking at where he's batting, if he is going to be batting, let's see. What the heck is going on here? not the first inning. I just need to know when he's leading off. And not just for an inning, but, in general, like leading off the ball game. I don't know why those. Maybe I need to try find it through Fangraphs. Give me 1 second, everybody. I apologize. Or not baseball spot. Baseball reference is what I really need to do. But in the meantime, I'm not going to waste too much time on this, so I'm going to actually hop back, breaking down a little bit more on the lineups here. Alexis, thank you so much for the donation. $5 Holla says, what would happen first? Mets turning things around or Drake and Kendrick collaboration? Oh, that's a great question. Truthfully, Drake and Kendrick collab. I honestly think I could see that happening first, which is crazy. That's insane to think about with the way that Kendrick has went in on Drake. If you know, if you guys have been paying attention there. But let me show you guys. Let's pull up the splits here to make sure that I have exactly the numbers here for you. You use RotoWire. I usually don't use RotoWire. I use Fangraphs, Baseball, Savant, MLB.com, Baseball Reference. Those are all my typical sites for sources of information. But let's now get into this. Let's get into the batting order. Let's see. Batting first. Here we go. Okay. So the numbers aren't as good as they were just a couple days ago. They aren't terrible, but certainly underwhelming. Batting first for Francisco Lindor so far that we have seen in 12 games, 51 at-bats, a 255 average, a 328 OBP, a 392 slug for a 720 OPS. This includes a home run and 6 RBIs. Lindor batting third this season, 235 with a 697 OPS. So he actually has been more productive there, batting leadoff than any other position so far this season. But I don't know how much that is about him batting leadoff, as I think that's more so about Lindor just getting out of his own rut. Because we know that Lindor, again, is a slow roll at times throughout the first month or two of a season, but then can really turn things on as we get closer to summer. So again, still not great numbers, but we're talking less than a week ago, Francisco Lindor batting leadoff, those numbers were unbelievably better. So just like that, in a snap of a finger, things have already changed rather drastically on that front. The same goes with this entire Mets lineup. We'll go through the numbers here in just a minute. I did see a comment, though. I like you, Wardy. Anything that works towards making the lineup good, it's okay with me. Me too, Frankie. And I'm at the point, too, and I've been telling all you guys this. I love Francisco Lindor. I love Pete Alonso. I love all these guys. But you know what I love more? I love winning. And I can care less about not winning. Furthermore, I can actually care less about not winning to the point that it pisses me off so much that I get numb with this team so much. And I just want this team to have success. And quite frankly, I don't really care how they get there as long as they get there, if that makes sense. So hopefully it's a sustainable way and they get in the way that they get there. But if it does mean that there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of change that feels inevitable right now, that's fine by me. Just do what you need to do. And guys, before we wrap it up, let's take a look at these laps here. Let's start off with the Arizona Diamondbacks. D-backs, of course, are 25-30 on the season. The Diamondbacks have been playing better baseball as of late, but still struggling fourth in the NL West right now. They have basically had, a Metsian start to the season, but this also comes with a little bit of a World Series hangover. Some guys underperforming at this point that we'll get into, because you got Corbin Carroll, who, again, MVP caliber player a year ago, NL Rookie of the Year last year, fantastic player, has been unbelievably underwhelming so far this year, with not even a 600 OPS. Carroll is really having a sophomore slump, if you will, this year for the Diamondbacks. Ketel Marte, still looking strong, just under 800 OPS, commanding second base. Jock Pearson, an absolute Mets killer. I promise you guys, Jock Pearson will hit at minimum one home run in this series, if not multiple. And it may start as soon as tonight against Christian Scott, who's going to pound the zone. Actually, I'm going to go on a limb and say, if you guys want to hammer prop bets, if you guys want to hammer a guy's hitting home runs, look no further than Jock Pearson at Citi Field against the Mets. That is almost as surefire of a guarantee as it is the Mets to be underwhelming yet again for the next couple days, more than likely. Jock Pearson with over 640 OPS, DH batting third. Batting fourth is Christian Walker, very underrated first baseman, power hitter. 817 OPS, commanding first. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., 651 OPS. He's been underwhelming a bit. Pavin Smith, who, of course, has not necessarily been an everyday guy for Arizona, but he's in there right now. 672 OPS. I know Arizona has dealt with ailments as well. Eugenio Suarez, who's a big bopper that can rip you 35 bombs plus a season. He's been underwhelming. Big swing and miss that we've seen, sub 600 OPS. Gabby Moreno, who has been at his best, a high contact, solid young catcher with solid framing too. Sub 650 OPS at catcher, and Kevin Newman, former Pittsburgh Pirate, a sub-700 OPS commanding shortstop there with, again, the current injuries and configuration that the Diamondbacks have going on. I don't know if Perdomo is out with injury right now, if he's just not playing today, but right now we have Kevin Newman there in the mix. And for the Mets, we have the lineup as follows, folks. What's up, Peter? How you doing, my man? Let's see. Lindor with a 651 OPS batting leadoff. DJ Stewart gets a start in left field today, so don't expect good defense in left field, unfortunately. DJ loved the teddy bear. Hopefully he gets a big bop today against the New Jersey native, that being Mr. Zach Gallen, rocking those glasses. Brandon Nimmo batting third with a 735 OPS and commanding center. JD Martinez with a 731 OPS, batting DH. Tied the ballgame for the Mets with an RBI double yesterday, 3-3, before the Mets and their bullpen completely floundered the loss. And batting fifth is Starling Marte, who got on base 3 times yesterday in the series finale against the Diamondbacks, 704 OPS, commanding right field, so don't expect great defense there outside of a great glove. Not great glove, but rather great arm. Jeff McNeil batting 630 OPS, commanding second base. Mark Vientos gets a start at first base with Pete Alonso not available right now day-to-day with injury, but he, of course, is not on the IL, so he is off the bench tonight. We see Vientos with a 989 OPS so far this season and a limited sample size. His best buddy, Brett Beatty. Brett with 628 OPS, still underwhelming so far this season, commands the 8th hole and batting there at third base. And Omar Narvaez, who should not be on this team as soon as Francisco Alvarez returns from his rehab assignment, in which it officially begins today. They're in Double-A, Binghamton with the Rebel Ponies. Omar Narvaez with a sub-400 OPS. And then as we take a look at the pitching matchup, Zach Gallen, absolute dog, one of the best right-handers in all the National League. Love Zach Gallen. One of those trades where, Miami is looking like, that's really the reaction there. Zach Gallen, though, fantastic young talent. Love that guy. Really do. Not looking forward to facing him tonight. We got Gallen there on the bump. 3.12 ERA this season, 3.89 expected ERA. He's had some luck on his side defensively, where Kristen Scott has been the opposite. He actually has had some bad luck, which is why he has a north of 4 ERA with an expected ERA of 3.31. These numbers are courtesy of Fangraphs, in case you guys are wondering. An expected ERA, for those that don't know, that just want some context, what that means is, again, what you can control as a pitcher. So for him to have a lower expected ERA tells you that, again, when excluding the defense behind him, which of course has been piss poor plenty this season, he has been rather effective. Kristen Scott with over 8 K per 9 to a sub 2 walks per 9, his first 4 starts of his major league career, is looking for a big start today against the Diamondbacks. I think Scott's going to look great. I really think he will. I think he will probably give up to a bomb or two to Peterson and Walker, but I do think he's going to have a nice start today. But will the Mets show up with offense after all the turmoil? I'm not expecting it, but I will hope for it. Kristen Scott there, exciting young right-hander that the Mets have that, again, may very well be the face of the rotation already this season before we get to the season's end. As we take a look again at the line here, if you guys are sports bettors like me, make sure you check out our great friends at BetUS who have you covered all your sports betting needs by clicking the link down below to sign up today, because if you do so, you not only get a 125% bonus with your first 3 deposits for all your sports betting needs, but you guys can hammer the Mets, the Arizona Diamondbacks, or whatever plays you like. And right now, if you guys are biased fans that like to bet on the Mets, I think that's the wrong thing to do, but if you're going to do it, just bet responsible, make your own decisions, that's fine. Mets currently sit as a moneyline underdog at plus 110. What that means is if you deposit $100 and the Mets win outright, you get an additional 110. So you come out with 210 or so, looking sharp. If the Mets lose by no more than 1.5 runs and you hammer the run line at minus 170, you will win money there as well. If you guys like the Arizona Diamondbacks there as a favorites, then hammer that. If you guys like the Dallas Mavericks the way that I sure as shit do tonight, they're in Game 5 where I think they will take care of business against Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves, and I say hammer the Dallas Mavericks, who last I checked through BetUS were at plus 165 on the money line and plus 4.5 on the spread. Love those odds for the Dallas Mavericks because Luka Doncic is the best player still available in playoffs and arguably the best player in all the NBA when the NBA season is going on. So for that reason alone, along with Kyrie Irving as that second option, the way that they have been balling out, they might not have defense, but oh boy, are those weapons exciting. I'm hammering the Mavs tonight, and I implore you all to do so should you wish, and of course, make sure you bet responsibly with our great friends at BetUS. But now, as we hop back into answering some of your comments before I get out of here, folks, I see Wardy. I'm looking forward to the postgame show. LGM, see you later, my man. Thank you so much, brother. Have a great rest of your evening. Happy to have you in here. McNeil's a crybaby. Maybe he should focus on his terrible play, not blame it on something else. Diego, you're not the first to make those remarks. I will tell you that much. Daniel says, I'm surprised Lindor has an 8-game hitting streak going on through this mess. Yep. Yeah, he's been hitting. He's been quietly hitting. We know that. It doesn't really mean all that much when the Mets aren't winning games, right? He's doing his part to a degree, but it only goes so far, everybody. But I do realize we're already 50 minutes in the live show, and I don't want to be, again, too long-winded when it comes to a pregame segment, folks. So that is about going to wrap. So that's going to do it for our live show. Again, we will be back live for postgame coverage just mere hours from now, so make sure you guys chime in. And until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. The Mets look to erase the LOL Mets narrative, and probably a Metsing way by, unfortunately, playing underwhelming baseball yet again. But hopefully they prove us wrong, and hopefully they give us a reason to have any type of semblance of enjoyment watching this unfortunate team for what's been all season long. But that's going to do it for your boy Wardy. Love you guys to death, and no matter what, as always,